Hi guys, welcome to Get Reviews and to this part 1 of the analysis of Luton's latest video about the Emperor of Mankind. I'm really sorry that I'm late guys, I had some unexpected difficulties, but now I'm here. And so guys, we are going to have to do this in parts because the video is very long and I have to analyze what Luton is putting down, so to speak. And when I first saw this video, I was extremely happy to find out that stream works well. Okay, thank you very much, dear Ivy. I was super happy to find out that we actually meet a lot in terms of how we see things, and he reached some of the same conclusions that I did, which is like so awesome. I mean, I've been doing analysis of the Emperor a lot, and it was great to see that this is not only me, that reached a certain conclusion, so it's super awesome. Now, I'm gonna start the video. It's not gonna be very long first half because I already started late, so we have a long way to go in any case. The video is 1 hour and 37 minutes, so yeah, we are going to get maybe to 20 minutes today, and then in part 2, 3, or however many parts gonna take for this. And now we're just gonna continue from where we last left off. But everything that he says in terms of the Emperor is just awesome, and I'm surprised that no one else pointed all of those things out before me and him. Yeah, so it's really awesome, guys. Okay, without further ado, but first though, hi to my primarchs in the chat. Hi dear Clayton, Ivy, Matty, and of course Dark is here, one of the awesome stars, Sir D. Good evening to you too. And investigated by amount of dislikes, I must take investigation. Yeah, heretics, I know, I know. Okay guys, so let's start and see if you can hear it. Okay. There's some music here which we can skip, and of course guys, the link to Luton's video is down below. Please go and watch it properly, support him, all of that. Don't watch it with me only, just watch it, experience it, get immersed in it, He put a ton of work into it, gathering the information from all kinds of different sources. Even recommended some novels that I do wanna get to, so there's that. Okay, playing. You don't hear it. Okay guys, wait a minute, you don't hear it. Fixing that real quick. And we can continue. Okay.
Seems to pass by so quickly, and I feel
we have sound, guys. We have sound. Okay. So starting from the beginning then.
time seems to pass by so quickly, and I feel like I somehow have not spoken of anything heresy era for a long time, which is seemingly pretty accurate, as it has in fact been 2 years since we last considered the story of the Emperor of Mankind. In my last exploration of the Emperor, we considered the interpretations of the Emperor via the last church in relation to faith and religion and how it sits in a wider context of humanity, plus of course his attempt to eradicate religion from human culture by outlawing all mythical and superstitious belief and worship within the imperium. This of course later unfolds in the wider timeline of 40k to become wildly ironic, and his actions in seeking eradication of all religion from humanity find
Echo,
him to be
okay.
something, if not near to, then fully hypocritical.
How
As the
about now?
story of the birth of the Imperium and heresy have further unfolded alongside the future developments of the Imperium in the distant Imperium of M41, we see that humanity, having fallen back on religion, has moved from being backward-looking and against everything the Emperor stood for to now become so important to its very survival. We even begin to see the unbelievable possibility of the Lord Commander of the Imperium questioning both the nature of the Emperor and the importance of religion. It's always difficult to decide a specific area for discussion when talking about the Emperor, because anything you touch upon inevitably will just lead to further questions, interpretations, and speculations. And this is because, despite all that has been revealed, the true nature of the Emperor, his intentions and his ultimate goals, in truth, no matter how confident the theorizing, remain entirely unknowable, and I'm going to restate that many times through this video. Now you might think to yourself, hold on now, aren't I the lore orator here, the researcher, and I'm supposed to reveal to you my grand interpretations, lay it all out for you, and say, gather round now friends, I've arranged all the puzzle pieces, and I'm going to let you in on the big secret that you're not meant to know. Now, I could do that, of course, but it would all be a lie, because I've spent many years reading, rereading details, saving relevant quotes and excerpts from novels, shorts, novellas, and all the material that together should bring us firm conclusions. Yet despite this, beyond some vague leanings toward possibilities, which I will get to at the end, the true nature and the core objective for the Emperor remains still completely inexplicable, but I still maintain that anything else is pure guesswork. Now, despite this, I will, by the end of today, try and arrange for you where I think we are at. But that is not the same as laying everything out and saying, I know how it goes, because that isn't the case. Now, are there theories? For sure. There's speculations, guesses, interpretations, and I could probably do videos for an entire year speaking about only the Emperor, because every single sliver of information gives you such minuscule amounts of insight that you feel like you're never truly getting anywhere. And even when they are more clear, usually something misdirecting or contradictory comes along. Not to mention, at this point, you often can't tell if it's a truth, a half-truth, a brazen lie, or perhaps just a misinterpretation of something said or done. Despite all we know about the Emperor, he remains a figure that, unless you're willing to trust his intentions on faith alone, like Malkador, his true nature and intentions are really just as much a mystery as they always have been. Compounding this is the fact that, as you know, I try my best to, generally speaking, operate primarily on the details that we do know, and offer my interpretations of the verse and its adjacent themes. I always try to flag when something is pure speculation or not, and clarify things which, generally speaking, appear to be accepted when they probably shouldn't be. Plus, as I've stated many times before, it remains my opinion, and as I've noted also before has been stated by multiple core 40k authors, that in the verse of 40k, the very concept of canon itself is a fallacy. And those are not even my words. The very nature, the very landscape of 40k bucks against the idea of having such sanctioned, standardized constraints almost by the definition of the parameters it operates within.
Okay, I could comment here, but he is doing just an amazing job. I mean, I have nothing to add here, but yeah, basically he's trying to say that there's no real canon. There's impossible to, watch over the continuity, and we already knew that. Well, at least I knew that, but it's close to the mind that it's impossible for all the writers to keep any kind of a real continuity, and something's going to be contradictory to another, which we already seen. But the way that Luton explains it here is just perfect, and it's laying down, if I can say that, the grounds for all of his next arguments, which are awesome. So yeah, continuing.
This is a fact which for many is a cause of much annoyance for the people who enjoy ticking boxes and tidying things away neatly. The funny thing, of course, is that in many ways, as I've said, my life would be a lot easier if everything was neatly sorted and labelled and marked, but on the other hand, also far less interesting. I think a good reference would be, as John French said in the afterword of Mortis, speaking to the idea of current authors still sowing the seeds for future revelations in the 40k verse. He said, "It is more plausible that the stories of the future would not match reality. The people of that time, if they know anything of the Horus heresy, don't know fact. They know stories that have grown and twisted and merged from multiple people and events. How was the Inquisition formed? Who was Moriana? Who was Alanius, the Pious? Who saved who and how? How did the belief in the God Emperor take hold in a broken, formerly secular society? Reality is not clean, and neither are stories."
Yep. Sorry, guys. An ad. Because the video was so long, I couldn't download it. It was pretty big.
So an
But
unclean,
continuing.
broken society. This is the galaxy of 40k. It's not about things being tidy and clean and easily defined. It's the shattered, twisted remnants of information scattered across an ever-changing reality that actively attempts to distort, twist, and manipulate information and facts. The very dimensions of the galaxy itself are actively working against those within it. And even if you only were to consider the Heresy series, it's still over 60 novels. We, as those outside the verse, are then left to somehow try and pick apart the confusing, knotted, and ragged threads of a destroyed but rich tapestry and decide for ourselves just what pattern they were originally supposed to form. After some time, I've often thought how you end up starting to feel like Ol P himself. You have memories of events, conversations, things you thought you knew for sure, things that happened, references you read. But then you stop and you consider, wait, were these real? Or were they just badly stored memories, corrupted details of discussions that you in one moment discarded but simultaneously remembered, albeit incorrectly, and then later recalled and blurred that memory with some other piece of information?
Yeah.
Sounds overdramatic and absurd, yet I have regularly had conversations with people and or read comments who are as confused as this. Such is the nature of the narrative that forms the 40k verse. So pity the authors who are required to do continuity checks. As I've so often said, 40k as a fiction begins to mirror itself more and more with its increasing difficulty to keep the actual reality of things clean and certain, if it ever were. And then you have the Emperor, which somehow always starts off feeling easy, and then when you start to get into it becomes migraine-inducingly vague, and when you actually reference his recounting, his visions, supposed memories, pearls of inexplicable reference and philosophical wisdom, contemplation, even when he isn't being vague, you can rarely tell if he's lying right to somebody's face, constructing some house of lies to imprison them within, or if he's telling the truth in such an unbelievably assertive fashion that any individual cannot decide if it were even the truth or not. This is the case all too often when the Emperor speaks with his closest aides and companions. You're never really sure if he's being truthful or setting them up with some web of intentional misdirection. Most of the time, his deepest seeming revelations precede an event that results in a horrifying end for said individual, and so his revelations are some method of preparing them for this fact. Consider Custodes Ra or Malkador himself.
Yeah, I'm super immersed right now myself. So sorry guys, I'm just sitting there, but that's just very important for him to get this out of the way, and we can also get to the analysis itself, and I can also add to all of that. So as a base, this is extremely important for all the arguments to follow. So yeah, continuing.
This is, of course, why I presumed he often referred to himself as Revelation. It's occurred multiple times. Uria in the Church of the Lightning Stone, Magnus, Malkador himself. The Emperor's choice of being Revelation among so many other names, I always assumed to be something of an amusement likely to the Emperor himself knowing his astonishing levels of arrogance, in the sense that he has seemingly never truly revealed his honest intentions to anyone, or not that we've seen anyway in a pure sense. And even when it appears to have occurred, its authenticity or entirety are questionable at best.
Oh yes, so one thing that I have to say, I told you so, about his arrogance when I did all of those videos about the emperor and how he compares to chaos, and basically how he is doing what chaos is doing, just in his own way. He is so arrogant that he thinks that he can beat them, and not only beat them, just cheat them, so to speak, in their own game. So, yeah, I mean, some people actually don't believe that he is arrogant, which is ridiculous. He is the definition of arrogance in every possible way. You could be confident and objective towards your own being and abilities, but he's not like that. He's just very, very arrogant. And when we analyzed also the last church, you saw how incredibly arrogant he is there and how he's talking to Uriah. Yeah. I can go on and on about that, but already discussed that, so I just want to interject here. And how Luton said it's just unbelievable how he is and how disingenuous he can be all the time.
Character is speaking with the Emperor candidly, it always feels like someone doing a deal with the devil, where you're trying to figure out
Yeah,
what are the extremely important pieces of information that he's not telling you and that will likely cost you your soul in very short order.
actually, because you know that I also analyze things not only from a literature standpoint, but also uh, from what 40K borrowed from esoteric science, and he seems to be the closest thing to Lucifer. The Lucifer, I mean, Lucifer is also called bringer of light, by the way. So the Emperor looks very much like Lucifer in some ways. Have to, I mean, that's another topic, really, how much is borrowed in terms of his personality compared to Lucifer, but it's implied a lot that he's like an archetype in a way of Lucifer. So totally not Jesus or anything like that. It's quite the opposite actually. But you know that doesn't mean that Lucifer doesn't know what he's talking about actually. But that's another topic. Uh, it also doesn't mean at all that if he knows what he's talking about, that doesn't mean that he's good in a way that he's good for humanity. But once again, that's so such a long topic. Everyone that is a writer, they can just take whatever they want from anywhere and just adapt the smallest part of it if they really want. And you don't know if they actually understand what they're taking and why. We have no idea. We have no idea. But the closest thing so far, it seems that the Emperor is like made after Lucifer, you can say.
The Emperor's choice of Revelation also seems applicable as an ironic reference to the Book of Revelation itself. And we know that there is a current attempt in the 40k verse to connect the events between it and the history of ancient Earth. And the fact that the Emperor is believed to have existed in this time, although, as I note, this usually occurs through dreams and singular accounts that I consider still personally questionable. You have Ol P, for example, a long remembrance of himself and the Emperor destroying the Tower of Babel. In this same lucid vision, Ol also references the use of dark, powerful knowledge, laying waste to cities, the Enuncia, till they were nothing but ash and salt. And this very obviously is a reference to the destruction of Sodom and Lot's wife, who looked back upon the city during its annihilation when told not to, and turned to a pillar of salt. So yes, we've come so far in the storytelling of 40k that its newest novels are now making biblical references, which means we really are getting dragged even further down into the cultural and philosophical rabbit hole. My personal thinking was always that the Emperor calling himself Revelation was an entirely deliberate biblical reference, simply based on the fact that it's hardly subtle, and therefore fits entirely for the Emperor. Because for as mystical and vague as he is in gifting information towards his ultimate goals, his execution of symbolism and metaphors generally leaves a lot to be desired. But considering this is a verse where Space Marine chapters were decided to number 1,000 Marines and not 10 or 100,000, I probably should let the Emperor's clumsy cultural winks and nods pass by. I'm far more irritated when a planetary battle is talking about having cost hundreds of thousands of guardsmen's lives, but I'm not going to rant about that yet again, or how the fact that hive cities, even with a tiny percentage of conscription, would form guard forces in the millions. But let's put a pin in that. So in referencing himself as Revelation, while interpretations and acceptance vary, overall it is predominantly seen as presenting an apocalyptic hope for humanity, or for true believers anyway. And I think however you may choose to interpret his actions and goals, you'd be hard-pressed to come up with a more appropriate title for the Emperor of Mankind than one which alludes to an apocalyptic last hope, but only for the souls who look to him.
Yeah, that's kind of something that is very similar. I mean, only to the souls that look to him. Yeah, that's how things work, unfortunately.
The most difficult detail for us to unravel in the puzzle of the Emperor is of course his ultimate aim. At face value, everything we know of him points toward him being a benevolent saviour for humanity. He is, after all, the God Emperor of mankind, the all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful, immortal, moving silently down through the centuries, living many secret lives, struggling to reach the time when those who remain will battle to the last. And I would have done that with a Sean Connery voice, except that I can't. So eventually, after doing Highlander for a bit, the Emperor emerged out of the destruction and chaos and ruin of humanity's own making to lead us on to an all-new time of chaos and ruin. That is to say, the true path of our eternal glory and enlightenment. But somewhere along the way, let's just say, mistakes were made, and now humanity exists on the edge of destruction yet again, over 10,000 years. If only things had been different, if only the primarchs, the Emperor's beloved sons, had not turned away from him, but of course for the foul corruption of chaos. The damned demon gods of the warp twisted and infected the minds of his sons. For the longest time we believed, and in my opinion the matter is not yet settled, that the gods themselves reached out from the warp and scattered the primarchs, and in so doing whispered the initial corrupting doubts to some of their number, which makes more sense to me than an embittered companion of the Emperor stealing them somehow and then dispersing them somehow. The early seeds of corruption were sown. These incepted doubts by the Chaos Gods inspired those in the future to throw off their shackles of loyalty to the Emperor and instead align themselves with the ruinous powers, along with several true believing instigators to push things along the way. But so much of what we thought were true now lies even more in doubt. Was it the gods of chaos, or did enraged trusted companions of the Emperor attempt to separate him from his primarchs in a futile attempt to disrupt this course? This has been precisely what I've been trying to get people to understand about 40k for so long. Things are only true until they aren't.
Yeah.
One person's account, opinion, perspective, reference, anecdote is only worth its weight in contextual evidence. When I myself talk about 40k lore, I often try to walk a line between imagining myself in the verse and how that would shape my perspective and opinion, as opposed to purely being an outside observer. This means that I tend to view snapshots of information, stories told, and so on through a very skeptical lens, because we simply cannot verify said person's authenticity. You're relying on the author to be sincere through what a character is telling you at a meta level. And very often in 40k, this is demonstrably proven to be inaccurate. And this often again annoys people, and it has done so with the steady development of certain details in the heresy. Some things that were previously believed to be known events get distorted. Things Horus has said, Ol-P taking a stand but actually not, scattering of the primarchs but then maybe not. You get the idea. Why is this important to understand? That narratives operate on several levels. It's important because, as I've often referenced before, narratives as complex as 40k are often telling you details and interpretations within wider contexts, usually through an invisible narrator who describes what's happening and how characters are feeling.
Yes, so that is key. That is key. So listen to this, guys. And as I said before, if you don't know how something is written, if you don't know at least these things, literally these things about how 40k in general, any kind of a literature is written, you cannot actually analyze it objectively. You have to have these things in mind, and we did have something like that in terms of a discussion last week, I think, or just a few days ago actually, when I explained on the stream that some of the stories are from the perspective of I don't know, some of you said something that what was it exactly, that it is not, the story is not written from the perspective of the humans, or I don't know what exactly it was, but the point was basically that when let's say the Astartes are talking and something is happening with them and they're in the situation, you see how they talk, all of that. You see that the story is through their eyes and you're in the action with them. When you see the humans and how they are living everything, you see the story through them. You see how they see the Astartes and everything else through their eyes. So that is how um, all the novels are made, at least so far, the novels that I got through. And there's the narrator that is separately from that as well. So all that is super important because a lot of things are obviously implied, but they may escape someone's perception. But if you know that, at least you're going to be a bit more aware to understand things a bit better. Okay, continuing.
Observe, and so on. When a new narrative opens, it's rarely a character speaking, it's an invisible narrator. And so we as the external viewer are therefore not necessarily always able to see things in their complete form. You feel like you do, but that's only if you just accept everything as it appears to be, and some people do really get defensive about this kind of thing. It says X happened, or a character did X or felt X, therefore, because it says so, it must be true. Now again, being skeptical about something doesn't equate to meaning that literally anything goes, and the verse is just a free-for-all. It simply means we have to be cautious about how much weight we give to certain things. Because usually there's some truth in most things, unless it's a just full blatant lie. Now, not wanting to get overtly technical, but like so many narratives, it's helpful to think of 40k in terms of diegesis. Now, all this means is that the narrator tells the story. It's how it's presented to us. Diegetic elements are part of said world, whereas non-diegetic refers to elements outside of the world. In a movie, it might be a sound we as the audience can hear, but characters inside the movie cannot. In fictional narratives, it's helpful to understand the structure because diegesis has 3 levels. There is the extra diegetic level, and you might want to think of this as the highest level surrounding everything, as this is the level of the narrator. They're telling the story. Next we go into a verse at the intradiegetic or just diegetic level. This is the world of the characters, their spoken interactions, their internal thoughts, their physical actions. And then you have inside of this the meta-diegetic level. This is where characters will tell or present a story within a story. For example, a spoken anecdote, a dream shared, a vision. Why is this important? To me, it's important because I always think of each level being less reliable from the position of an external viewer. And I want to note this is my personal opinion now, not something established or set in stone. I always see the highest level, that of the extra diegetic, as being the most reliable, the author themselves, the individual least likely to lie or misrepresent something deliberately. So for example, if a narrative tells us Horus walked down the darkened corridor, it was cold and damp, I feel pretty confident that I can trust the corridor was cold and dark and damp.
Yeah.
Horus was telling us himself or speaking to another character at a diegetic level that the corridor was dark, it felt cold and damp. We can trust this fairly confidently. But what other factors might be affecting his perception too? He's within the fictional verse. Maybe what he sees and feels is being distorted. Then at the meta level, if someone was merely retelling this, well then you're getting into things like bias, personal agenda, distortion of reality, poor memory, the list goes on. So the point I'm trying to make is simply that when we consume something fictional, but most especially thinking of the 40k verse, it's just important to understand things are operating at different levels of reliability, in my opinion anyway.
Yes.
Would you trust something a
I agree.
demon said in 40k? Probably not, because it's a demon, and when it's telling you things at a meta level, you know it has all manner of potential contamination issues with the validity of that information. Now, an Astartes recounting something is going to be more reliable than a demon, you'd think, but my point is only that we should be cautious at the meta level, and especially within 40k, because we cannot know what other factors are or were at play in distorting that account. But I hope what I just noted helps to see how the path and narrative for the Emperor that has been told was already far from being solid. When did he gain his power? What was his plan? How did he work with Malkador? How powerful is his foresight? The primarchs were flawed, yes, but intentionally or through lack of foresight. Some were twisted and corrupted to turn against the Emperor. But was it truly the gods of chaos who orchestrated it? Was it the Emperor himself? Is the Emperor truly benevolent, loving father, or a cold, calculating entity as far removed from humanity as the Astartes and primarchs and demon gods themselves? Many have noted that there is something underneath the Emperor, something behind the psychic veil of power and beauty. John Grammaticus, Corax, Ra, Gilliman, many have seen momentary glimpses of something beneath the veil of his power, something much more cold, much more inhuman. In Deliverance Lost, Corax notes, "Is this your true face?" "I have no such thing," replied the Emperor. "I have worn a million faces over the millennia, according to need or whim." "I remember this one," said Corax, dimly recalling a dream he had glimpsed when overcome by his wounds in the crashing Thunderhawk. "This was how you appeared to me when I was born within my pod." "Yes, it is strange that you should remember that," said the Emperor, his expression becoming sterner. It's very clear that the Emperor hates for anyone to see through to his true self. But why? As I noted at the end of episode 3 in this Emperor series, the primordial truth uncovered the greatest lie of the Emperor. The greatest cost of this lie seems to have been the Imperium imploding into the heresy as unwitting Astartes legions are caught off guard and are thrown into absolute chaos. The galaxy burns, and Calth. As I noted though, there is this deeper, hidden, but I admit speculative truth for the primarchs and Astartes that he is possibly not their singular father. What I meant by this was our discovery in Vengeful Spirit, the well-known discovery through Horus, that the Emperor visited the world of Moloch, where it is known there is a portal to the warp, long before the Great Crusade itself. Now, as I said, this is far from a new revelation. It's formed the core of discussions for years about the origins of the Emperor and just what he has done in the past or his personal agenda. Now, we'll note in some ways it's actually largely irrelevant because whatever he achieved by visiting Moloch, we know how he ended up, and so much time has passed that any repercussions have already played out. In a real sense, what matters is the modern progression of events in M41 and just what occurs there. Historically though, and specifically in regard to the Emperor himself, it's still interesting and important to consider. This reference to the Emperor's visit to Moloch is something people have often discussed and leveraged to bolster speculations about the Emperor, theories, intentions. It's very important to remember though, that there exists little evidence that suggests to us exactly what the Emperor did during this visit. We really only have a reference from Horus, which is likely an opinion and considerably biased, and a perpetual who is seemingly more reliable, but also very thin with her information, and so not particularly helpful. We're left instead to infer for ourselves, likely very deliberately, what occurred, which has inevitably led to widespread disagreement. Like I said though, ultimately it is somewhat irrelevant at this point. Generally, it is presumed that the Emperor travelled to Moloch and went into the warp, for this was the only reason for his coming there. But it is wholly speculative that he made a deal with the Chaos Gods. There are vague allusions to him having stolen from the Dark Gods, so many presume this is suggestive of having gained knowledge, which presumably would be in exchange for something or the promise of something. Although I would argue power and psychic strength of other powers might equally have been gained as well. We know the Chaos Gods grant this to their champions, Mortarion, Fulgrim, Horus, etc. Now any potential deal or theft might also explain why during the Crusade the Emperor is so urgent to complete his goals. For someone who is so powerful and such a perfectionist, he accepts the degradation of Space Marine genetics just so they can churn out as many as possible to get the Crusade concluded. Now we do know that the Emperor is just frustrated with humanity. He wants to push it forward, and that's one of the thrusting goals that we are aware of. He just wants to move things forward and get on with it. But throughout the entire sequence of events until the end of the heresy, even before Horus turns, there is this immense sense of urgency on behalf of the Emperor, where he's cutting corners and just really pushing the envelope as much as possible. Which makes us question if he were not working against some invisible imposed time constraint or some other form of impending deadline. And there is in fact a small sliver of evidence toward this, although it's thin, but it's where Malcador actually says the war began before we were ready. It's never wise to put too much weight into a singular statement, but it is Malcador, and he is speaking specifically of his and the Emperor's plans. Like I say, many have grown to accept the Emperor's speculative bargain with the Chaos Gods as a near enough certainty now within the 40k lore. But it's anything but, it's merely implied. The Emperor may have made a deal he later broke with the Chaos Gods, deceiving them and promising something he had no intention of delivering, or he may have promised them something in the form of a terrible unknown sacrifice for humanity. It's entirely unknown. For it's just as plausible that the Emperor not honouring such agreements are in fact what caused the apocalyptic descent of corruption that caused the Horus heresy. And this tends to be the view of other perpetuals who are known to the Emperor, Ol P.
Okay, so gotta stop it here. We are already 26 minutes in the video itself. So, and we are 34 minutes into the stream. So, last words on this part. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be said here, but I agree with Luton so far because he is basically showing exactly how we should approach this logically, uh, having all the facts in mind, having the perspectives in mind of everybody that are involved. So that's pretty amazing way to look at it, because well, that's the objective way. I don't think that you can dig into that more than this method. I mean, through this method, you can do whatever. I mean, you can discover a lot of things. You can continue with the analyzation as far as you can take that. So whatever happened there, something was pretty substantial. So yeah, that though he's going to finish in the next part. And we actually have not reached any of the meat of things quite yet. So the meat of things and the parts where I'm going to talk a lot more are coming. Here everything is just the base of Luton's, basically opinions, everything on the emperor. That is the most substantial things that you can say, and they're pretty freaking important, guys. But I unfortunately started this stream very, very late, and I feel like I'm already sleeping, which is not very good, so I have to go and get to bed right away. It's past midnight now. But in any case, even if I wasn't that sleepy, I'm gonna say that I have nothing else to add. But we had to get through this first part because it's super important. Otherwise, anybody can just shoot stuff. The Emperor's this, the Emperor's that. I mean, people have not really thought about these things at all. At all. So, if you don't have this analytical way of seeing things, you totally get wrong so many other things in movies, literature, and all of that. So if you want to be on to the point and as close to the writer as possible, that is how you have to think. So that is, I just love to see that. It's just great. I'm gonna check your comments real quick, guys, and then I'm gonna go before I really start sleeping on the stream. That's gonna be fun. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you what I'm reading because you're just gonna wonder why I'm doing these faces. So, Matty says, I mean, I read all about him back in the day, like 09 or some time back, and this was not how he was described. He was not arrogant, and he was described as loving and caring, and that's very interesting. But also, it is what Luton says. The information throughout the years, contradiction. He's gonna get to all of that as well. So the continuity keeping of all the writers. At some point, if he was caring and all of that, then he wasn't. So that's also the point. And also this could be explained by the fact that he could be pretending to be this way in the first place. So there's that. Okay, I'm not gonna read that. His humanity until the fight with Horus. And that's totally not true, Matty. I don't know why you still think, and I did try to explain that to you in the previous stream, that he did not lose his humanity with his fight with Horus. He was already that person. And I also explained how a lot of things in that fight doesn't make any sense. How he behaved, how naive he was to think that Horus could be redeemed. All of that, once again, that is continuity issues when you're writing a character, in this case the Emperor. Lack of continuity when it comes to his powers, to his character. It just becomes extremely confusing when you see that what he's now carrying but not. He calls the primarchs things, but then he calls them sons when he talks about them in person. You have to understand that the Emperor is written in a huge a contradictional way. That's a word. But the majority of what is actually consistent is that he is arrogant, he is full of himself, and he did fail his plan, which we're going to get to when we get to the second part, or maybe the third part of Luton's video, because he addresses all of those things, and that's why it's so awesome, this video. But yeah, he addresses that and he explains that. So basically what he's trying to say from the very beginning of this video, and that's why I didn't want to also interrupt him, because not only that I agree, but I think that his explanation is perfectly sufficient, like more than perfectly. But yeah, I mean, what he says is exactly that throughout, 40K, the way it was written, how history is remembered, it is not. I mean, a lot of information is missing. How people remember history itself, how characters describe events, how the author are describing, I mean, authors are, sorry, it's very hard to say this word. Writers are describing what's happening in the universe, all of that. Everything has to be taken into consideration and see which point is more objective than another, and all of that. So we cannot say, like, remember that we cannot say anything that's really set in stone. Uh, Maybe besides a few events, like the emperor being in the embedded in the golden throne, but there's other things that are really open to interpretation. But the consistency when it comes to the emperor is that he is disingenuous, basically. That is, for the most part, how things are looking like when you get to everything from the beginning to now. When you have all things considered, he does not come out as caring or anything like that. Yeah, anything positive of this sort is the total opposite. And to one point you have to have some kind of a conclusions. What is he at the end of the day? How things are looking at the end of the day, and how things are looking is exactly that he's disingenuous and all of that. When you're a writer, and if you wrote the emperor as being caring and all of that at the beginning, but then somebody else came along and they changed that, and it seems like he wasn't, well, that's normal. I mean, it's just continuation of the story. So they can always say, well, he wasn't actually genuine. So yeah, that's totally normal if they decide to do that, and they did. But you cannot like take something that has been written a long time ago and then think that, oh, maybe I'm just gonna choose to believe that he is that, when you have a ton of books on top of this that prove otherwise. You cannot just throw away all the other information that is a lot more than that older information that proves that he is actually not a very good person at all. So it would be naive to think that he is a caring, loving, all of those things. Like, what the heck is caring and loving when it comes to the Emperor of Mankind? Those two things are just not, totally not compatible with each other, unfortunately. So yeah, the fight with Horus has nothing to do with it, but it's one of the most confused stuff. I mean, weirdly written emperor things that he ever did. So it does not coincide with his previous established character, which is the wisdom, the everything else. He should know what chaos could do. Then you have that theory that he knew what's gonna happen, that the primarchs are gonna betray him, which Luton also gonna discuss. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, and I really have to go. But I wanted to at least address that, because there's just too much evidence to say that the Emperor is a big ass, so to speak. As much as I love his image, um, it is not as bright. It's that he wants us to believe that that is basically the point. Okay, so getting to your comments real quick now. Well, yeah, Matthew, you're saying this now. Okay, so this is the problem I have. that the M can be changed based on who writes and what mood GW. Jesus, I'm just my cognitive ability is non-existent at this time of night. It doesn't exist. I'm trying, but it doesn't exist, unfortunately. Well, at least I don't think I missed to say anything, so that's good. What mood GW has about him, I fear lack of continuity. Well, that's amazing that you actually said that, and I already explained all of those things, but you actually said that. But I just wanted to address every comment individually. So I get that you get that now. Okay, that's great. No need to tell me. You probably told me. Okay, let's see. Well, that explains how frequently he published and all of it's between mins. What? Minis? What is that? I cannot understand user D. And this is the problem I have with Star Wars and Star Trek. Trek is not what Roddenberry envisioned based on lack of continuity, and Lucas lost his way with Disney. That's another topic. I mean, he didn't only lost his way, he just sold it, so he gave up on it. Yeah, it's not fun. I learned about the Emperor from 40k lexicanium? What's that, like lexicon? And wow, has it changed since then? Well, of course, yes. Different times, different writers, different decades, all of that. Still with Biggie, he had all his power. Why didn't he use it? Maybe he knew he shouldn't use it. Power corrupts, and absolutely power corrupts absolutely. That doesn't make any sense. He is all powerful. He wanted to become all powerful. He did something here with chaos, became more powerful in some kind of a way, shape, or form. Probably, most probably. And it's ridiculous to say that he's not gonna use that because he has it. That's not an excuse. He has it. So it's like I can draw and paint, so I'm not gonna draw and paint. Because if I do, that means that I'm gonna think that maybe I'm good or something. I mean, that's absolutely nonsensical. Uh, so yeah, and like I've also said, the sorry, Bulgarian, for goodness sakes, like I also said, guys, you cannot justify like fill the gaps. I mean, justify what the writers did when it doesn't make sense. It's their job to make it make sense. So if they can't, then it just does not make sense. So if we try to like stretch the explanations in order to make sense, that's not our job. It's our job to analyze if we want, but to force some kind of a sense into it and like, suck it out of our fingers in order to make sense, that means that really the writers did not do their job. If we have to go to such lengths to do their job, for them. Uh, Stolen was 20 laser wrap beans to implant. Well, I can believe that's 3D, but I don't see any evidence, at least not for now, of that. So I can't believe something that I cannot see evidence of when it comes to fictional stories that is not even implied. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if you can tell me the source when you actually decided that. Okay, but I mean, in any other case, I can't see that happening. If it is that, okay, that's fine, but I can't throw files here. That's why I send the sketch on Facebook. What sketch? Excuse me. A sec. What sketch is that? I'm gonna check. Okay. Facebook has been lagging like crazy from time to time. Is that me? Ah, Jesus Christ, that's me. Ah, okay. Okay, that's interesting, the sack. That's interesting. I'm glad that I can see a sketch now. Okay, that's lovely. Can I show that on stream? Can I? Okay, let me check the comments. I guess I'm not gonna be able to catch up with all the comments and reply to everything. Hi, Beta. I'm happy that you're here. And Optic. Ah, okay. Yes, I can. Okay, thank you. Okay. So, bravo to Vasak, guys, for the sketch. I'm Sisters of Battle here, not the Empress. That in color, probably going to be pretty amazing. I'm having this face like I'm, well, I don't want to say it, but I look very, very disappointed by something. Let's just say that. Very, very disappointed. I don't know. Hopefully you can fix that frown somehow to not look so constipated or something. But other than that, it's pretty great. It has a lot of potential, really. It has a lot of potential. It's a big honor in any case. Okay. Um okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes, I know. Actually, yes, dear Ivy, they are close. It is close. It is pretty close, damn it. I just saw a couple of heretics. Well, my face is probably going to be something else if I did. maybe uh like so. Something like that. No, not like that. Probably like this. Yeah. Xena. Just imagine Xena. That kind of a face. Of Xena being angry. That's basically it. Oblong. What is oblong? I have no idea what is that word in English. Regret after eating 2 pizza slices. Yes! No. If I ate 2 pizza slices, I would be like this. And then, if I didn't do my steps and all the training and I didn't burn the calories, I would be like this. Like, that's why I would be like this when I weigh myself the next morning. But that is almost never the case, so I'm good. Oh, and I write an order about the exterminatus. An ordinary thing. Well, if it's so ordinary, why I'm so upset about it? Why I'm so freaking upset. Um, we're just back of heretics cruising around. No need to be alarmed. Hey, what are you doing with the gun? Yeah. Oh, you're clipping this? Why? Oh well, actually, if you like. Oh, she's preparing to attack some nearby enemies at the bar. Well, Sisters of Battle don't really go to a bar, I don't think so. Exterminatus, yeah. The pizza face is funny. That's the pizza face. I love pizza and chocolate. Please don't give me pizza and chocolate. Like, don't ruin my discipline, please. I'm going to give that to myself when, well, in a certain time of month when I can eat these things, but that's not a topic. An object of flat figure in an elongated rectangle or shape. Okay, that makes sense. My face is something like that, you can say. Okay, guys. So, pizza with chocolate. Yes. Not at the same time, but totally one after the other. Okay, that's amazing, Vasak. Thank you very much. I mean, that was a long time coming, and it was super awesome. Thanks, Vasak, also for the confirmation on Facebook. Amazing. So I just can't wait for you to color this. Please color it. Please. Make it like you make all of the other art that you do, because it's just amazing. And I'm gonna be very proud to share this. Very proud when it's colored. Okay, I can't stop. looking at it. Pizza with chocolate. What is coleslaw? What's that? Oh yeah, a gorgeous piece in the making. I have no doubt. And Vasak, he's just great and a great artist. Well, Matty, you're another case. You have to be even more disciplined than I am, so. But you can make a keto pizza if you like. I can teach you that, and you can still have pizza. It's not gonna be exactly the same thing, but still pizza. So yeah, you can make a keto pizza. Okay, guys, so gotta go. And that's gonna be about this part, but the next parts are gonna be much, much, much more interesting, and thus my commentary a lot more present and interesting because right now yeah, I'm just admiring Luton's standpoint. Yeah, yeah, optic, absolutely. Thanks, dear Clayton. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you to Zach. As always, if you'd like to support me, link up there. I would probably share this all over the place until you do the full version. So yeah, I mean, if you have nothing against that, let me know. So I'm gonna do that if you don't. It's great. Okay, guys. So um, have a great weekend, guys. See you Saturday and Sunday. Have to work on the OnlyFans videos, but if I can't, I'm also gonna appear, of course. And if not, just next week we're gonna continue with this for sure. So. Oh, yeah, and Sergi, by the way, he also does something like that as well. So he has his own amazing project, but it's still a secret between us. So I hope that it's something that is going to blow me away and blow you away. And I just can't wait for that. Thank you, Zach. Thank you very much for this, and thank you, Matty. Yeah, that's gonna come next year, the PC, the rest of the PC. So, love you guys. Till next time, me get your reviews. Sleep well. Have a great weekend, as I said. Kisses. Love ya. My golden Astartes and amazing Primarchs. Bye bye.